Welcome back to part 3 of our Aventon Aventure fat tire e-bike review. This section, part 3, is talking about the pros and cons, the pluses and negatives, the good, the bad, and the ugly that we've learned over almost 2 years of ownership and 1,700 miles on these bikes. So we're just going to walk through some of the things that we really like about the bike and some of the things that are like, they could have done this better, or maybe some tips for you. First thing we want to mention, and we keep saying this, is fun. Fun, 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 fun. My wife always says from the minute you get on the e-bike, you get a permanent smile on your face until you get off. And then you usually got a pretty good high afterwards for a few hours because you've just had so much fun and you've exercised, you've been outdoors, and all the pluses. And us, we're here at Gulf Shores State Park. Take a look around. They've got about 28 miles of bike trails around Gulf Shores State Park in southern Alabama. Now I know all you northerners, you talk bad about Alabama, but we drive up and down the beach and you northerners are all over the place. So stay away if you don't like us. Anyway, that's the number one thing, fun. The second thing is the bike's geometry, the shape of it. It is well designed in its 3 frame sizes, small, medium, and large. If you follow the frame size guidelines on the website, which we'll have links at the end of the video in the description, the geometry just fits really well. It's properly sized. It's not a cruiser bike with the curved back handlebars. They have more of a almost a mountain bike style handlebar, but you set mostly upright on the bike. You don't sit completely upright like a cruiser. You do have a little lean, but most of your weight is on the seat, which again you have to remember some of the things we talked about in our second video, maybe our first video, about the seat comfort and the suspension and things like that. The third thing I want to mention is really good is these bikes have an amazing headlight. The headlight is just phenomenal. When you turn it on at night, you've got great visibility. You can see for long distances. As far as you can pedal, you can see. You always want that distance vision when you're biking. It keeps you stable, it keeps you straight, keeps you in line, and that headlight helps you do that. Now, they don't recommend you ride in the rain or the dark, but when you have to, and we do because we ride so much, next thing you know, the sun's going down. We're like, oh no, it's going to be 9 o'clock before we get home. But at least we've got a headlight to get us through.
Oh, can I mention something as well on the headlight? When we've rode down the road, there's been multiple instances where we're driving with our headlight on, well, riding our bikes with the headlight on, and people actually come in the other direction with their cars, blinking their headlights to make us dim our headlights, but we can't dim our headlights.
Yeah,
so.
When we're riding side by side, we almost look like a car coming down the road at people, and they think it's high beam. All right, the next thing I want to mention is the rear rack. And I talked about this when we talked about the functions of the bike. The rear rack holds 55 pounds or 26 kilograms, as you can see, or 25 kilograms right here. It's a really awesome rack. You need to purchase it. Now, if you notice a little glitch right there, we had technical difficulties. Our battery died on the camera. We had to swap batteries. But anyway, we were talking about the rear rack, how nice it is, how easy it is to attach things, how heavy duty it is. And we talked about that in earlier video, but it's worth mentioning again. That's an awesome rack. Now, a lot of people like to strip the racks, don't like to buy the racks, and they'll even take the fenders off to get the weight down, but we don't do that. We've driven in the mud and in the rain, and you just don't want all that road spray all over you and all over your bike, and those fenders help that a lot. The other point I want to make on the positives, the pros, these bikes are head turners. I mean, everywhere we go, even people on different models and brands of e-bikes stop and stare and look at these and ask us questions about them. We are almost, if we could get paid, ambassadors for Aventon, because we just love these bikes. We love the way they look. I mean, just look at how cool that is. That looks almost like a mini motorcycle. And that's what attracted us to the e-bike in the first place. We kind of knew about e-bikes, but we really hadn't got interested in them. And we went to a bike shop, walked in and saw a bike identical to that one, the midnight black with the yellow and the orange paint scheme. And I was just like, whoa, what is that? And the local bike shop let us test drive it, and we fell in love. We just decided we gotta have an e-bike, and we just couldn't wait until we had the money to go pay for them. So that was just amazing for us.
Even little kids say, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, now hardcore road bikers will call you cheating, but if you're cheating, at least you're having fun.
Or mountain bikers.
Yeah. Now the other thing about the bike is with these tires, my wife calls them a curb conqueror, because you can run over a standard curb at a reasonably slow speed, kind of curb crawl over it, and you don't have to worry about it. So a lot of people say, well, I don't need a fat tire bike because I don't go off-road. I ride in the city, I commute to work, and Aventon makes bikes for that, specifically for that, with the smaller tires, the narrower tires, just for street riding. And well, what do I need a fat tire bike for? Well, if you ride in the city, aren't there curbs? If there's an emergency, wouldn't you like to have the option to pop up on the curb if you had to? Just saying, that's a good point. Think about that. That's why we love the fat tire. Multi-surface tires, adjust your PSI based on where you're riding, and these bikes will take you almost anywhere except downhill mountain biking type stuff. The other thing we talked about earlier, just the cool color schemes. My wife's got the camo green with the red and yellow highlights. Mine is the midnight black with the yellow and orange highlights. And the version 2 of the Adventure has this cool cobalt blue. Now it's only available in the step through, which I'm not a big fan of the step through. You may be, but I like the style of the step over better. But I wish they had a cobalt blue when we were able to buy these bikes. They just didn't have that color scheme at the time. And the other good thing, other pro on these, is the adjustable front suspension. That is an amazing feature. They aren't the most stable forks. There's warnings about using them downhill on trails and things. You don't want to do jumps with them. You don't want to do things like that. But once you get those shocks dialed in for your riding surface and your comfort, they're really cool. I mean, I just hit a few bumps, and we rode down this walkway. It's a wooden walkway, big long deck, pier, whatever you want to call it, and we were going about 14 miles an hour, and it's just and you don't really even feel the thing in your hands or your arms. Did I mention fun? Oh yeah, I did. These bikes are a lot of fun. The next positive is the motor size and the brand. They're great for this price point of bike. In the $1,500 to $2,000 range for e-bikes, you're kind of you're not buying a Walmart e-bike or a Best Buy e-bike that's $300–400 that you're just going to be disappointed in, and you're not buying a $6,000 mountain bike that's electric or a $9,000 road bike. You're buying sort of the second and a half tier e-bike, and you're spending $1,500 to $2,000. And the motor, the Bafang motor, 750 watt, plenty of power. I'm almost 200 pounds. Plenty of power for me. I have had these bikes up to as high as 52 miles an hour, believe it or not. Now, granted, that was downhill with me pedaling in pedal assist 5 and in 8th gear, but that was flying. But the motor wasn't even working at that point. It had given up. You can easily get 28, 30, 32 miles an hour. We consistently, just around our neighborhood, we're going 35 miles an hour down some of the hills. But the motor is just awesome. Never had any problems. Other good point, mentioning speed, these bikes are extremely stable at high speed. The frame rigidity and the size of the tires just gives you a lot of stability as you're riding. I've ridden mine, got it going, pedaling, getting up about 15–20 miles an hour, and then just take my hands off the handlebars. You know, I can ride my bike with no handlebars, and you can just balance easier than you could when you were a kid on one of those little BMX bikes or one of those little street bikes with the banana seat, you know. But a lot of fun, a lot of fun.
And if you get scared, get back up and try it again. I mean, I don't know what your fear is, but it seems like this bike does a lot of the work for you.
Yeah, it sure does. And that leads into my other point. These bikes are great for older folks. Younger folks are riding them too, don't get me wrong. Younger folks like some of the more sportier models, the ones that look more like a little mini bike or something like that. There's tons of manufacturers and models out there, but these bikes, great for older folks, great for folks, you got knee problems, anything like that, joint problems, hip problems. The electric assist just helps so much, but it gives you that power and opportunity to get out in the outdoors, exercise to your heart's content, or as little as you want, but you still are going to exercise. They've done studies where they found that riding an e-bike gives you just as much exercise as riding a non-electric bike, because you're going to ride farther and longer, and that's an awesome plus. My wife had knee surgery at the end of January. She fell and had a tibial plateau fracture. She required surgery, that gel cement that they put in there to rebuild the tibia, 2 plates and something like 6 screws. And after she recovered, she's right back on the e-bike, hasn't missed a beat. It's good therapy according to her orthopedic doctor, and she just loves it. She
no physical therapy other than the e-bike. So
she was not depressed because she couldn't walk. She was depressed because she couldn't ride her e-bike.
Exactly.
When she was sick. So anyway, it's great for folks with, if you think, oh, my joints hurt too much, I can't get on an e-bike. I've had a joint problem in my left knee for a while, more of a tendon problem, and the more I've ridden the bike this year, the more that's going away. It really just helps to exercise and move around.
And not be like walking. Some people think that putting all your weight on your feet and your knees, walking all the time, is a good thing, but not always for older people. It's better to sit down on the bike and let your joints just go with the motion of the bicycle.
Absolutely. And that, you know, the good thing about it is you can put as much effort as you want. You can put a small effort in if that's your fitness level and what you want to accomplish, just to get out a little bit and enjoy the wind and the sun and the breeze, or you can really get out there and really hammer it on these bikes and get really hardcore exercise out of them. But small effort, big results. That's the good thing about these bikes. Again, we've mentioned this a couple of times, but with the racks, you've got great cargo capability. She said earlier on one of her earlier videos, we have actually strapped a pizza to the front rack. We've carried multiple 2-liter bottles of soda on the front rack. We put a lot of gear on the back rack, and they just got a lot of cargo capability. You just got to keep in mind your max weight, 350 to 400 pounds. You take your weight off, and then that's what you can carry in gear. But the more weight you put on the bike, the less distance you're going to get out of your battery.
And bungee cords are a great accessory for this bike, tying things down. Cheap,
small, big, all kinds of different size bungee cord.
Along with the netting as well. You can buy some netting like this.
Yeah, spider netting or any type of netting like that is great. The other thing, good thing, we live in Alabama. We've mentioned it before. We live in foothills, Appalachians, a lot of hills, a lot of ups and downs. These bikes eat hills alive. If you live in an area where you're like, it's too hilly, it's not flat enough, these will take care of it. E-bikes take care. They level the ground for you, is what we always say. They flatten the hills like the Dukes of Hazzard. You know, straightening the curves and flattening the hills. And then the last positive, well, next to last positive, just the overall durability of the bikes. We've had really good fortune with these bikes. We're grateful to have them. We're thankful to have them. We're glad that the good Lord blessed us with the financial ability to buy them. And we have just been overall, I would say about 93% pleased with the overall durability, which is a big, big plus. And then the very last pro, before we get into the cons, is they're fun. Oh, I said that already. But they are. They're tons of fun. Now let's cover a few negatives. And I'm not here to just blow praise on these bikes. I'm here to be truthful to you, the Uber YouTuber, to let you know the the truth about them as much as I can. Again, this is based on our experience. We had an issue early on, and we had to contact Aventon support. Now, Aventon support gets up and down reviews. The only issue we had was their slower response time, and I think a lot of that was due to the fact that their bikes just kind of took off and they weren't expecting it. They just didn't have the customer service capability to jump in and take care of everybody's request all at once. I mentioned it before, the small frame, the biggest issue is the bottle holding capacity. This is just a standard Yeti, and it
barely fits.
You have to force it in and force it out, and it just barely fits because the distance between your top bar and where the bottom of your cup holder.
But is that an Aventon product or is it aftermarket? I believe that's an aftermarket.
Well, this is an aftermarket cup holder.
Cup holder. It's just the amount of room in between the spokes,
just
like
clearance between here and here.
There.
Because the small frame, the medium frame, larger frame, you're not going to have that problem. You can, but I just don't want to. You can buy a cup holder to mount on your handlebar if you wanted to, and I could do that.
But that takes away from all the other goodies you'll be putting on your handlebars.
Now here's one of my biggest ones that drives me crazy with these bikes. To me, I feel like the paint rubs off too easily. I don't feel like the paint is bonded super well. I've got a bad spot here. Now that's not for me jumping off and rubbing certain parts of my anatomy on there. That is from a neoprene coated bike rack. It has a rubber tube around the metal, and it loops around like this and just sits there. And all that rubber does is bounce a little bit as you're driving, but it is already taken this
all the way to the metal,
all the way to the aluminum. And there's a couple other spots on my bike and my wife's bike that are like that. And you cannot, because this is aluminum, you can't just run into your craft room and get some paint and try to put it on there. I don't know, I haven't contacted Aventon about any type of way of doing touch up on this, but I'm probably going to do that in the near future. The other thing, and I think I'm going to go around to your bike to show this, and you'll have to come on the left.
That would be his wife's bike.
Yeah. Yes. The power button is a little tricky. It's a one quick click to power it on, and then when you turn it off, you push it in and hold it for 2 seconds, and that'll turn the bike off. The problem is, this piece of plastic was made so tightly to the tolerance of this button that sometimes that button will just stick like crazy, and you'll sit there 5-6 times before you get a good push. That was the issue I contacted Aventon about early on. They did send me a new piece of plastic that was already branded and everything, and it fit a little better, but it's still a little aggravating. There's just not enough clearance in there. Again, we mentioned this, we're talking about the seats. The bike being a hardtail, it can make your butt sore. Recommend seat pad, different seat. A lot of people like the bikeroo seats or bikeroo seats, whatever they're called. And maybe even a suspension seat post wouldn't be bad. We're gonna investigate that in the next couple weeks. And again, we mentioned talking about the racks. The front rack has really open spacing, and it's not a basket. It's not like an old-timey basket on a cruiser, beach cruiser bike. It's just open, and you have to be really conscientious about what you want to put on that front rack.
Again, Boy does a good small pizza fit in there very well. You can't tell we like food, huh?
Yeah. Now the other thing I want to mention at the back of the bike, these gear sets, these Shimano Acera, they're not the most durable. You can get the next level upgrade for about 40 bucks, 35 bucks, depending on where you go. But you could probably get a really nice gear set for 60, 70, 80 bucks. This one is not that expensive if you want to replace it. It's probably a $25, $30 gear set. But they're just, she tipped this bike over one time, I think on grass, and it's already bent the gear set to where it just doesn't want to align properly. We can get it adjusted to shift a little, but it's not shifting right, and it's bent so badly we're just going to have to replace it.
And honestly, I haven't wanted to give my bike back to the bike shop we bought it from because they said it may be a few weeks and I want to ride my bike. So I'll stick with the few gears because it's still great whether I have all the gears working or not.
All right, the next thing is the brake pads, especially on the rear. I haven't taken apart the front, but I think they're the same. And I forget the model of these brake pads, but they're a little bit of an older model. It's sort of like going to Walmart and buying a TV. You're going to get last year's model or the year before. This one's the same thing. You get the brake pads are a little tricky to find. We have, I'm going to say 4 to 5 pretty big bike shops in our town, and only one of those, not the one we bought the bikes from, but only one of those carries the brake pads. And they just don't, usually when we go in, they only have one set in stock, and just little thing to worry about. We don't really wear out the brakes, and this leads into my other thing. My wife's 1,700 miles, and she's just getting to where she needs rear brakes. I had to replace the rear brakes on mine, and the reason was when we got the bike, we didn't pay attention. But I recommend the fit and finish check, because the QC on these bikes, depending on who your bike shop is, or if you order them directly from Aventon with shipping and jostling and all that, you may or may not get all your nuts and bolts tight on the bike when you get it. And something had happened to my rear caliper, and it had gotten out of line. The one brake pad was, when you would hit the hydraulic lever, one brake pad was pushing in more and the other one wasn't moving. And it was because of the way the brake pad, the caliper was aligned. So I wore out one side all the way down the metal, and then when I took it apart, the other side had full thickness on it. So check your fit and finish, whether you buy from a local bike shop, which I highly recommend, so you got somebody to get work done on them, or you order directly from Aventon and have the bike shipped to you. You're going to have to do some assembly, but make sure you go over the bikes with a fine-tooth comb when you first get it. My other negative here is the tiny brake light, and a lot of people mention this on the Aventons. It's really bright, but that's the only brake light you have, and that little booger is kind of tiny. That's only about 3 inches long and a ½ inch wide, I'd say.
And it's not directly on the back. You know, you would think it would be centered in the back, but no, it's on this one side.
Yeah.
So. And
they put it there for wiring purposes, plus for people to be able to take their fenders off, but it's just a little wimpy for me. And again, we mentioned this one before, so I'm not going to beat this dead horse, but they're not meant to be used as a serious mountain bike, going down hills, doing jumps, things like that. If you want that, you're going to have to do something different. That's not necessarily a negative, it's just a reminder for everybody. And we mentioned before the weight. It's not easy to pedal when you get down to pedal assist 0, so battery management is very, very important, unless you want to just struggle getting back to where you need to be, or carry your charger with you like we do sometimes. If we know we want to do an extended bike ride, carry our chargers with us. We'll find some place somewhere we can plug in for 10-15 minutes just to get enough juice to get back. We've been in those emergency situations before. 3 more negatives and we're done with this video. You don't have to see my face anymore. Handlebar room. Because these aren't straight handlebars, and there's so much already here with throttle, the brakes, the controller, and the display right in the center, that leaves you with really about this much room on this side to mount stuff, and about 4 inches on this side to mount stuff. We've got cell phone holder, our beautiful alarm, and that's about all we've got really on the front. Now you can purchase what's known as a handlebar extension, which is basically a thing that clamps here and over on this side, and it gives you another bar across here to put other stuff if you wanted to do that, and that may be a option for us. But right now I think we're pretty maxed out about what we need on our handlebars.
You got the end that you can put these rear view mirrors on too, and they flex and turn, and I think we only paid $9.99 for those, didn't we?
Yeah, if we'd have had to put a rear view mirror for this side, it would have had to go right here.
Yeah.
And that's a little awkward. You'd have had to have one that comes up like this and goes way out like this and just looks weird.
Right.
So you could have put one, you can't really put one over here either because your shifter is right here in the way. So you really only have 2-3 inches on this side to put stuff. So recommend handlebar extension if you really want to put a lot of stuff up there. And that leads, since we're up here at the front, let's talk about this. Both of our bikes, and I don't know if this is a problem with every bike that comes out, but I see it a lot on some of the online forums. These cables, you'll see these have these little quick connects, and it's a good thing they do, because the cable tension going into the frame gets tight, especially when you turn the wheel too far. Now we have loosened these up and we've made some adjustments, but it was every day if we turned, one of these cables would pop apart. And these cables, this one and this one, are the ones that send the signal to your brake light. So you turn and pop, and then you don't have a brake light, which is not really safe. But we had to move the brakes in about 1/4 inch on both sides, and then we had to really work to loosen up some room in the frame. And my wife even we took the rack off and pulled the wires around a different way and routed them around the rack different. But you're gonna possibly have problems with that, and that's another big negative. And the last negative, and then I'm gonna be quiet, is the crankset length. Now, if you don't know what the crankset is, it's where you pedal. And this length, I believe, is 170 millimeters. And the problem is, when I rotate this all the way around, you can see my toe just barely goes under there. So if you're riding and you lean that bike just a little bit, if you have to.
I thought you would maybe show it on this side instead of that way.
Sure.
Because it's a little easier for us to see. But just to see what it is just right there without even bending over, you'll see that it's pretty close to the edge of the decking here.
And you'll get a lot of what.
Well, you can see on mine how much edge is scrubbed off from hitting the asphalt all the time with the edges.
Or a curb or something like that, or
Right.
having a pedal strike. They call that pedal strike when you hit something with your pedal. And it's a common problem with the Aventon, and it's all because that crank length is long. I've had people put smaller crank lengths, but when you do that, you kind of mess with the geometry of the bike. You'll have to set your seat different, maybe mess with your handlebars a little bit to get the same feel, and you might even change, you know, the torque at which you have to pedal. I don't know, but it's just a problem you got to get used to. Learning from watching a lot of biking videos, bikers just get really used to the fact that when they're going around a curve, they will either level their pedals where both sides are equal, or they'll set the pedal that's going to the curve up so they have no chance of striking. And that's the best way around it. And once you get a few hundred miles on the bike and you get used to that, it's not a big problem. Well, that concludes the pros and cons. Overall, we think the Aventon, our version 1, is a really good bike. Like I said, our durability factor is about 93%. Overall, if I had to give it a grade like A+, A minus, B+, I'd be somewhere between about a B+ and an A-. I don't know how my wife feels.
It's a great value for the money, I would think.
Yeah, and you can rate it on the different categories. Value for the money, really high. That's an A+. Especially now with the sale, the $14.99.
Yeah, lucky you.
Yeah, lucky you. But I'm not kidding. It was like a week after we got our bikes delivered from the bike shop. I went on Aventon to fool with the app and upload and do all this. So I went to their website, and sure enough, they had free front and rear racks if you buy your bike now. Well,
I thought it was only one rack.
Or maybe free rear rack or something.
Right.
If you buy your bike now.
And it was $14.99 as well as a free rack.
Wait.
I think it was. Okay, maybe it wasn't.
You're mixing up what
Okay.
I'm talking about when we first got our bike.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I went on their website and they were giving away
Pardon me.
free front and rear racks.
Mhm.
And I was like, we just paid for those. So I contacted them. I said, hey, I got a receipt. I just bought my bike like a week ago. And they wouldn't help me out. So, but anyway, buyer beware. Look at the website before you buy anything. See if there's any deals that you can get.
Or if there is nothing going on, just wait a few weeks and see what's going on in a few weeks.
Yeah.
If you can stand the wait. Me, I say run directly to your local bike shop and look for an Aventon if you can find one. If not, order it online right away.
Now another thing, don't forget, we're down in the sunny weather most of the time. Well, sunny and rain. But a lot of you guys are up north and it snows. And you can look online, Aventon, search it, Adventure. People ride these things with these fat tires in the snow all the time. Snow, sand, gravel, grass, any type of pavement. Great bike. But anyway, that kind of concludes our video. Overall, a couple of thumbs up for the Aventon Adventure version 1, version 2 with the different features we talked about earlier. Torque sensor versus cadence sensor, a couple different colors. 4 pedal assist instead of 5 on this one. You just make your own decision, but you get a better deal right now with the version 1 if you could stand a step through sand colored one. But if you do, good luck with it. But we're probably going to do a couple more videos later. I know we're going to have some videos up of some of the rides we've taken, but we may do a video just sort of an instructional introduction to e-bikes, how to ride them, how to, you know, do things with them, what you need to get used to and things like that. But I think we've pretty well covered the pros and cons and the features of the Adventure. So I appreciate you tuning in. Tammy, you got anything else to conclude with?
And we may just do a video on the accessories and the accessory fails that we've experienced, and the accessory wins that we've had. That would be a great video as well. What do you think, dear?
Yep, that'd probably work out pretty good.
Okay.
All right, folks, thanks for tuning in.
Like.
Yeah, don't forget, like, share, and subscribe.
Yes, please.
And hit the notifications if you want to keep seeing more content. And leave comments, whatever you got to say to us. I'm too fat, I'm too ugly, get him off the camera, whatever. The bike sucks, I don't care, whatever you think, it's your opinion. Put it in the comments. Or if you like the content, tell us. If you want us to go ride somewhere and videotape it, if it's somewhere in the south, we might just take you up on it.
Or if you want to come and do a ride with us while we're filming, just let us know that too.
Absolutely. Well, y'all have a good one. We'll talk to you.
Thank you.